How email replaced letters. There was a time when waiting meant something very different, when news from a loved one traveled at the speed of horses, ships, and trains, and a simple message could take days, weeks, or even months to arrive. Then email arrived, and the entire rhythm of communication changed almost overnight. The age of handwritten letters. Before digital communication reshaped the world, handwritten letters were the backbone of long-distance connection. They were not just a method of sending information, they were an experience, shaped by patience, intention, and personal effort. Writing a letter meant slowing down and choosing words carefully, knowing that they would travel far beyond the writer's immediate surroundings. In the age of handwritten letters, communication was deeply tied to physical materials. Paper, ink, envelopes, and stamps were essential tools. Each letter began with preparation, selecting stationery, deciding on tone, and often drafting the message by hand without the convenience of instant editing. Mistakes were part of the process, sometimes crossed out or rewritten, giving each letter a unique and human character that reflected the writer's thoughts in real time. Sending a letter also required commitment. Once sealed and mailed, there was no way to retrieve or instantly correct it. The message entered a system of postal routes that could stretch across cities, countries, or oceans. Delivery times varied widely depending on distance, weather, transportation methods, and political conditions. A letter sent across the world might take weeks or even months to arrive, and the sender had no choice but to wait. Despite the delay, letters carried emotional weight that modern communication often struggles to replicate. A handwritten note from a friend or family member was something tangible, something you could hold, reread, and even keep for years. The handwriting itself added personality, revealing mood, familiarity, and effort in ways typed text cannot fully reproduce. For many people, receiving a letter felt significant, almost ceremonial, because it represented time and thought invested by another person. Letters also played a crucial role in business, government, and historical record keeping. Important decisions, contracts, and announcements were all communicated through written correspondence. Entire relationships, both personal and professional, were maintained through this slow but reliable system. People learned to be patient, to anticipate delays, and to value each message as a meaningful event rather than a constant stream of updates. Over time, handwritten letters became symbols of a different pace of life, one where communication was less immediate but often more deliberate. While modern technology has largely replaced them for everyday use, letters still remain powerful in specific contexts, such as personal milestones, formal occasions, and sentimental exchanges. They remind us of a time when communication required effort, and that effort gave every message a lasting sense of importance. The limitations of traditional mail. Traditional mail was once the primary way people communicated across distances, but it came with significant limitations that shaped how and when people could share information. While handwritten letters carried personal meaning and emotional value, the system that delivered them was often slow, unpredictable, and constrained by physical and logistical barriers. One of the most obvious limitations of traditional mail was speed. Unlike modern communication, which can happen in seconds, postal mail depended on transportation networks such as horses, trains, ships, and later airplanes. Even with these advancements, delivery times could still stretch from several days to many weeks. A message sent across the same country might take days to arrive, while international correspondence could take months. This delay made it difficult to have timely conversations or respond quickly to changing situations. Reliability was another major issue. Mail delivery depended heavily on weather conditions, infrastructure, and geographic challenges. Severe storms, floods, or snow could delay or even interrupt service entirely. Remote or rural areas often experienced slower and less consistent delivery compared to urban centers. In some cases, letters were lost, damaged, or delivered to the wrong address, leaving senders and recipients uncertain about whether their message had even reached its destination. Traditional mail also lacked flexibility. Once a letter was written, sealed, and sent, it could not be edited or corrected. If a sender realized they made an error or needed to update information, they had no choice but to write and send another letter, which added more time and effort. This rigidity made mail less suitable for urgent or rapidly changing information, especially in business or emergency contexts. Cost and accessibility were additional challenges. While sending a single letter was often affordable, frequent or long-distance communication could become expensive over time. People who relied on international mail or large volumes of correspondence faced ongoing costs for postage and supplies. In some regions, access to reliable postal services was limited, making communication unequal depending on location and resources. Another limitation was the lack of immediacy in conversation. Traditional mail worked as a one-way exchange with long pauses between messages. Unlike face-to-face conversations or phone calls, letters could not support real-time dialogue. This made communication feel fragmented. With long gaps between questions and responses, misunderstandings could take days or weeks to clarify, slowing down both personal relationships and professional decisions. Despite its importance, traditional mail could not keep up with the growing demand for faster and more efficient communication. As societies became more interconnected and fast-paced, the weaknesses of the system became more apparent. These limitations ultimately created the need for new technologies that could deliver messages instantly and more reliably, paving the way for digital communication systems like email. The rise of digital networks. The rise of digital networks marked a turning point in human communication, transforming how information is shared, stored, and accessed across the world. Before these networks existed, communication relied on physical systems like postal mail and telephone lines. However, as computers developed in the mid to late 20th century, researchers began exploring ways to connect machines together so they could exchange data directly and efficiently. Early digital networks were created in academic and military environments where the need for fast, reliable communication was especially important. One of the earliest examples was packet switching, a method of breaking information into small pieces and sending them through multiple routes before reassembling them at the destination. This innovation made communication more efficient and resilient, laying the foundation for modern internet systems. As more institutions adopted computers, networks began to expand beyond single locations. Universities started linking their systems to share research and resources, allowing scientists and students to collaborate more easily. These early connections were limited in speed and reach, but they demonstrated the powerful potential of connected digital systems. For the first time, information could travel between distant locations almost instantly, without relying on physical transportation. The development of the Internet as a global network further accelerated this transformation. What began as small, experimental systems evolved into a worldwide infrastructure, connecting millions of computers. This expansion was driven by advances in technology, standardization of communication protocols, and increasing demand for faster information exchange in business, education, and government. Digital networks also changed the nature of data itself. Instead of being stored only in physical formats like paper or film, information could now exist digitally, making it easier to copy, transmit, and modify. This shift allowed communication to become more dynamic and interactive. Users were no longer limited to sending static messages. They could now share files, images, and eventually real-time data across vast distances. As networks grew, they also became more accessible to the public. Personal computers and later the rise of home internet access brought digital communication into everyday life. People could connect not only with institutions, but also with friends, family, and strangers around the world. This accessibility helped reshape expectations about communication speed and availability, making instant contact the new norm. The rise of digital networks laid the essential groundwork for modern communication tools, including email, messaging platforms, and video calls. By connecting people and devices on a global scale, these networks fundamentally changed how society operates, moving communication from isolated, physical exchanges to a continuous, interconnected digital system. The birth of email. The birth of email marked one of the most important breakthroughs in modern communication, fundamentally changing how people send and receive messages. Before email existed, communication between computers was limited to technical data, sharing and simple commands. However, as digital networks expanded, the idea of sending written messages electronically began to take shape, eventually evolving into a system that would replace traditional correspondence for millions of users worldwide. Early forms of electronic messaging appeared in the 1960s and early 1970s on shared computer systems. Users on the same machine could leave messages for one another, often through basic text-based commands. These messages were not yet email as we know it today, but they introduced the concept of asynchronous digital communication, sending a message that could be read later rather than requiring both parties to be present at the same time. A major step forward came when engineers developed ways to send messages between different computers connected through networks. One of the key figures in this development was Ray Tomlinson, who is widely credited with sending the first networked email in 1971. He also introduced the use of that symbol to separate the user from the destination machine, a simple but powerful innovation that remains central to email addresses today. This early version of email was originally designed for practical communication between researchers working on the ARPANET, the early precursor to the Internet. It allowed users to send short text messages across different computers, eliminating the need for physical mail or direct terminal access. Although simple by modern standards, this system proved that digital messaging could work reliably across networks. As the technology developed, email systems became more sophisticated. Software improvements allowed users to organize messages, reply easily, and send copies to multiple recipients. The introduction of standard protocols made it possible for different email systems to communicate with each other, helping email spread beyond research institutions into government and eventually commercial use. By the 1980s and 1990s, email began reaching the public as personal computers became more common. It quickly gained popularity because it solved many of the problems associated with traditional mail. Messages could be delivered almost instantly, at very low cost, and without the physical limitations of distance or transportation. This speed and convenience made email especially valuable for businesses, which needed faster ways to communicate and share documents. The birth of email did not just introduce a new tool, it created a new expectation for communication. People began to expect rapid responses and constant connectivity, reshaping both personal and professional interactions. What started as a simple experiment in networked messaging grew into one of the defining technologies of the digital age, laying the foundation for modern communication systems that continue to evolve today. Why email spread so quickly? Email spread rapidly because it solved communication problems that traditional systems could not handle efficiently. In a world that was becoming increasingly connected through computers and early digital networks, email offered a faster, cheaper, and more flexible way to exchange information. Its growth was not just a result of technological innovation, but also because it matched the needs of individuals, businesses, and institutions at a time when speed and efficiency were becoming essential. One of the most important reasons for email's rapid spread was its speed. Unlike traditional mail, which could take days or weeks to deliver a message, email allowed communication almost instantly. As long as users had access to a connected computer, they could send and receive messages within seconds or minutes. This dramatic reduction in waiting time changed expectations about communication and made email highly attractive from the beginning. Another key factor was cost. Sending letters required postage, paper, and physical delivery systems, all of which added up over time. Email, by contrast, required no physical materials. Once a user had access to a computer and network connection. For businesses in particular, this reduction in cost made a significant difference, especially when handling large volumes of communication. The ability to send unlimited messages at virtually no extra cost encouraged widespread adoption. Email was also highly efficient in terms of functionality. Users could send the same message to multiple recipients at once, eliminating the need to write and send separate letters. It also allowed quick replies, message forwarding, and the attachment of digital files, such as documents and images. These features made email far more versatile than traditional mail, supporting both simple conversations and complex professional communication. The growth of personal computers played a major role in email's spread as well. As computers became more common in homes, schools, and workplaces, more people gained access to digital communication tools. Once internet connections became widely available, email quickly became one of the first applications people learned to use. Its simplicity and usefulness made it a standard feature of early internet experience. In addition, email benefited from strong adoption in academic and professional environments. Universities, research institutions, and technology companies were among the first to use it widely, helping to refine and promote the system. As employees and students became familiar with email in these settings, they carried it into other areas of life, accelerating its spread even further. Finally, email's success was driven by its convenience and reliability. Messages could be stored, organized, and accessed at any time, making communication more flexible than phone calls or postal mail. Users no longer needed to coordinate schedules or wait for physical delivery. Instead, they could communicate on their own time, which made email suitable for a wide range of situations. Because it combined speed, low cost, efficiency, and accessibility, email quickly became an essential tool in modern communication. Its rapid spread reflected not only technological progress, but also a broader shift in society toward instant, always connected communication. The transformation of communication. The transformation of communication over the past century represents one of the most significant shifts in human history. What once depended on physical distance, slow delivery systems, and careful planning has evolved into a constant flow of instant information. This change did not happen all at once. It developed gradually through innovations such as telephones, digital networks, and especially email, which helped bridge the gap between traditional and modern communication. In earlier times, communication was shaped by limitations of speed and geography. Handwritten letters, though meaningful and personal, required days or weeks to reach their destination. Even the introduction of telephones, while revolutionary, still required both people to be available at the same moment. These systems improved connectivity, but they did not fully eliminate delays or barriers to interaction. The rise of digital technology introduced a new stage in communication. As computers became more widespread and networks expanded, information could be sent electronically rather than physically. This shift allowed messages to travel almost instantly, regardless of distance. Email played a central role in this transformation by combining the structure of written communication with the speed of digital transmission. It allowed people to send detailed messages without waiting for physical delivery, fundamentally changing expectations about response time. As communication became faster, it also became more continuous. Instead of structured exchanges separated by long gaps, people began engaging in ongoing conversations through email and later messaging platforms. This created a sense of constant connectivity, where information could be shared and updated at any moment. The result was a communication environment that was no longer limited by time or location. Another major part of this transformation was the shift in communication style. Traditional letters encouraged long, carefully written messages. In contrast, digital communication often favors brevity and speed. Emails and messages tend to be shorter, more direct, and focused on efficiency. This change reflects broader cultural shifts toward faster decision-making and real-time interaction in both personal and professional life. The transformation also affected global relationships. Communication tools like email made it possible for individuals and organizations to connect across countries instantly. Businesses could coordinate international operations with ease, and families separated by long distances could maintain regular contact. This global connectivity helped break down many of the barriers that once made long-distance relationships difficult to maintain. At the same time, the increase in communication speed introduced new challenges. People began to expect immediate responses, which sometimes created pressure and information overload. The constant flow of messages required new habits of organization, and attention management. Despite these challenges, the benefits of instant communication have continued to outweigh the drawbacks for most users. Ultimately, the transformation of communication reflects a broader shift in how society values time, connection, and information. From handwritten letters to instant digital messages, each stage of development has moved toward greater speed and accessibility. Today, communication is not just about sending information, it is about staying continuously connected in a rapidly changing digital world. The evolution from handwritten letters to email represents a major turning point in how people communicate. What once depended on physical delivery, patience, and long waiting periods has become an instant, global exchange of information. Each stage in this transformation, letters, postal systems, digital networks, and email built upon the last, improving speed, efficiency, and accessibility. Email did not simply replace traditional mail. It redefined expectations for communication itself. It introduced the idea that messages should be delivered quickly, stored easily, and shared widely without added cost or delay. This shift changed both personal relationships and professional systems, making communication more continuous and immediate than ever before. Although handwritten letters still hold sentimental and historical value, they now exist alongside faster digital tools that dominate everyday life. The rise of email shows how technology can reshape human behavior, turning slow, deliberate communication into a fast-moving and always connected experience that continues to evolve today.